Continuing their trend of monthly Unearthed Arcana releases, just yesterday we saw the release of a new playtest document, Arcane Subclasses. This article provided us with 9 new or revised subclasses. The revised ones for 2024 are the Arcana Domain Cleric, the Arcane Archer Fighter, Hexblade Warlock, and the Conjurer, Enchanter, Necromancer, and Transmuter Wizard. As for new subclasses, we got the Tattooed Warrior Monk and the Ancestral Sorcery Sorcerer. As you can tell from the title of this video, we're going to be discussing the Tattooed Warrior Monk. I'll definitely also be making a video about the Ancestral Sorcery Sorcerer, but let me know if there's any others that stand out that you'd like to see discussed here, and also be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. I'm also getting so close to 16,000 subs. Thank you so much. Alright, let's not waste any time. Let's dive right into the Tattooed Warrior Monk. This subclass is technically not new to D&D as it did exist back in 3rd edition, however it is completely new to 5e, so we'll begin by reading the description so everyone is on the same page about what the subclass is looking for flavor-wise. Drawing from the diverse body marking traditions from across the multiverse, tattooed warriors can use arcane power imbued in their magic tattoos. These monks gain tattoos as they grow in martial prowess and insight. Tattooed warriors can cause their tattoos to change shape to access a versatile suite. It's a pretty cool theme. I'm definitely getting Michael Scofield from Prison Break vibes here, but I mean with some magic. It's a cool idea to be able to draw strength and abilities from the various markings on yourself and gain more power as you level up, signifying your growth and change over time. Starting at level 3, our first feature is Magic Tattoos. Now strangely, this isn't really a feature in itself, so much as it just describes how our other features work. Essentially, we are able to gain access to magical tattoos that can appear whenever we wish. Importantly, damage or injuries do not impair the function of the tattoos in any way, and we also get to decide what they look like. For any tattoo that can cast spells, Wisdom is our spellcasting modifier, and whenever we complete a long rest, we can reshape one of our tattoos with another from the same list. There's 4 lists to choose from that we gain access to at different levels. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's look at our level 3 feature, Beast Tattoos. Straight away at level 3, we get to pick 2 options from this list. First up is Bat, which gives us the Dancing Light cantrip and lets us, when we spend 1 focus point on Patient Defense or Step of the Wind, to gain blindsight to a range of 10 feet for 1 minute. This is fine. Dancing Lights is a reasonable cantrip and can come in handy in plenty of circumstances. Gaining blindsight, even if it's only limited to 10 feet, isn't so bad either, as it lets you not suffer disadvantage on attacks against invincible creatures, and they don't get advantage on us either. It's an admittedly fairly niche situation, but not entirely without value. Notably, it doesn't activate when we just use Step of the Wind or Patient Defense. We have to spend 1 focus point on it, otherwise we do not get the bonus. Next is Butterfly, which gives us the Light cantrip. It also allows us to spend 1 focus point to cast Silent Image without any material components. Ironically, we're finally getting a class with access to spellcasting through points and not spell slots, and it's a monk, not a sorcerer or scion or anything else. Go figure. Anyway, Silent Image is a very fun spell that gives monks some utility that they otherwise don't typically have. Chameleon gives us the Minor Illusion cantrip and allows us to spend 1 focus point to cast Disguise Self. These are 2 of my favorite spells, so I love this one on a personal level, and again, it does provide some fun opportunities that lets monks do things that would typically be gated behind multiclassing. Next we have Crane, which gives us Guidance, which is an excellent spell to have, but in addition, if we use Flurry of Blows and miss an attack, we get advantage on any remaining attacks that are provided by Flurry of Blows specifically. This is a weird one because it sounds great, and to be clear, it's not bad. Generally speaking, features that only provide value when something bad happens, in this case missing an attack, aren't great, but this one isn't at least super niche since you will inevitably miss an attack at some point. The problem is that you don't know when that missed attack is going to happen. If it happens on your first one from Flurry of Blows, then sure, you get advantage to hopefully make your next attacks land successfully. That's great. But if it happens on the last attack, then you get nothing for this feature. I mean, yes, we do get Guidance, but I still think this is probably one of your default picks since everyone always wants to be using Flurry of Blows anyway, and at least you don't need to spend extra focus to make this one work. It's a nice failsafe, but the amount of value that you'll inevitably get from it is immensely inconsistent. Next is Horse, which gives us Message. That's cool, it's another great spell. But it also allows us to spend 1 focus point to cast Longstrider without any material components. My first reaction to this is that it feels completely unnecessary, given that we are a monk and have unarmored movement, and there's only so much movement speed you can really have before it's just kind of excessive. But there are 2 upsides. Firstly, Longstrider is touch and not self, so you can use it on someone else, but also if you did want to don armor or a shield, this can help you get back some of that movement speed, so it's not actually all that bad. Next is Spider, which gives us the Mending cantrip, which is nice to have, though admittedly not as generally applicable as some of the others. However, it also makes it so that when we hit a creature with an attack from our Flurry of Blows, that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of our next turn. This is kind of like the Sap Mastery, though it does require you to use Flurry of Blows, which does require you to spend 1 focus point. This is still pretty good and likely worth taking most of the time. And finally, for the beast tattoos, we have Tortoise, which gives us Spare the Dying, which is definitely way better now than it used to be since it can be cast at range. On top of that, we can cast False Life by spending 1 focus point. This is fine. Monks have always had a shockingly small hit die in my opinion, and getting access to some temporary hit points just for 1 focus point actually feels like a fairly good deal. It doesn't scale since there is no upcasting available to us, but an average of 9 temps in the early levels is actually pretty okay. Overall, I think the beast tattoos are alright. You get access to some pretty solid cantrips, and some of the extra utility is nice to have. That said, I think some options are definitely on the weaker side like Butterfly, and the others feel a little bit niche like Bat. I think Crane and Spider are probably the best generally speaking, but there's definitely a case to be made for Horse, Chameleon, and Tortoise. The fact that we are able to change 1 tattoo over at every long rest is a very nice touch that helps us likely have the right option for the scenario at hand. The thing to note though is that when we do long rest, we only get to swap 1 tattoo total. So right now we only have our beast tattoos, it's not so bad. We'd probably only want to be swapping 1 anyway. But when we get access to more lists with more tattoos, it's going to start feeling progressively more restrictive since we can still only swap 1 tattoo and not 1 per list. So with that in mind, let's take a look at our 6th level feature, Celestial Tattoo. This time we only get to choose 1 option. First up, we get Comet, which allows us to spend 2 focus points to cast Find Traps. I really think, or at least hope, that this is just a joke from the designers. They can't possibly be serious about this. Find Traps has been one of the most dunked on spells since the beginning of 5e's life, since it literally does not do what the title of the spell says it does, namely, finding traps. And to spend 2 focus points, 1/3 of our total at the time that we get the feature to cast a spell that barely works, it's just criminal. This needs to be changed. Next is Crescent Moon, which allows us to spend 2 focus points to cast Misty Step, because what would 2024 D&D be without a subclass that can cast Misty Step, right? This is weird because Misty Step is an excellent spell that allows for increased mobility, but one of the key reasons the spell is so powerful is because it allows for quick teleportations away from something without triggering opportunity attacks. Monks, though, can already disengage as a bonus action with Patient Defense, or they can spend 1 focus point on Step of the Wind to both disengage and dash away, which likely gets you farther than Misty Step would, but it does consume your bonus action. So while this does give you some additional opportunities to move and not consume your bonus action, it feels like the times that it would be necessary are pretty limited given that it does cost twice as many focus points. Next is Eclipse, which lets us spend 2 focus points to cast Invisibility. This is good. It's probably the first option in the Celestial list that actually feels like there's a genuine use case for it. Invisibility is a very powerful spell that has viability in a plethora of situations. The biggest issue it has is just the cost, but we're going to talk about that at the end of this section. Finally, we have Sunburst, which allows us to spend 2 focus points to cast Lesser Restoration. This is also a great spell, but again, it's just about the cost. So let's talk about that. The issue with the 2 Celestial tattoos that are even worth considering, Eclipse and Sunburst, is the cost. At the time that you get the feature, they consume 1/3 of your available focus, which will greatly impact your ability to do other things like Flurry of Blows, which you need focus to use to combo with your other tattoos that you might have chosen from the beast list like Spider or Crane. This makes the Celestial Tattoo a massive tax on your available pool of resources and will leave you likely starved for focus in a position where you are unable to utilize your typical combat moves, or feeling like you don't want to use your Celestial Tattoos, neither of which is great. Now, it is worth noting that monks in 2024 do have a lot more ways to regain focus. Points come back on a short rest, Uncanny Metabolism allows us once per long rest to regain all of our expended focus points when we roll initiative, and all the way at level 15, Perfect Focus allows us if we have fewer than 4 focus points left and roll initiative, we can regain points until we have 4. This is definitely a worthy improvement and makes these options at least somewhat viable, but you are very likely going to be playing some serious micromanagement with your focus now. Monks want to be using Flurry, Stunning Strike, or Patient Defense or Step of the Wind all the time. So while it's great that you can recover your focus when you roll initiative, what happens at the end of combat when you've burned all of your focus and can't immediately short rest? Moving on to our level 11 feature, Nature Tattoo. Again, this time we only get to pick one. These are all essentially the same, so I'm going to cover them at the same time. All of them require the expenditure of 3 focus points. Mountain lets us get resistance to acid damage and advantage on constitution saves for 1 minute. Storm gives us lightning resistance and advantage on dexterity saving throws. Volcano gives us fire resistance and advantage on strength saving throws. And finally, Wave gives us resistance to cold damage and advantage on wisdom saves. This is such a confusing feature. I would love to talk to the designers about what was going on when they came up with it. Firstly, it's giving off heavy "we have 4 elements monks at home" vibes. Someone in my Discord mentioned how it feels like it was probably part of a scrapped 4 elements monk rework, and they just slapped it in here and called it a day. But it's just so underwhelming and weird overall. Your entire 11th level feature is a single damage resistance and advantage on 1 save, and it freaking costs you 3 focus points to use it. That's like 30% of your total at the time that you get the feature. It's insane, and it's not even like it lasts all day. It's just for 1 minute. Features that provide resistances are not exactly scarce in the game, and they often come with other benefits, and they don't require you to spend something on them most of the time. Especially not that much. Barbarians just have Rage. Wildheart Barbarians have Bear from the Rage of the Wilds feature, which gives like 7 resistances for the cost of exactly nothing. Zealot Barbarians, admittedly at level 14, get 3 resistances, but they also get a fly speed and the ability to bounce targets back up from 0. Land Druids get a resistance from Nature's Ward and immunity to the poison condition for the cost of exactly nothing. Sea Druids get 3 resistances and a fly speed at level 10, though they do need to at least be using their Wrath of the Sea feature, but even that can be used an unlimited amount of times. I can keep going, but I think you get the point here. Resistances are great, don't get me wrong, but an entire high-level class feature that requires a heavy resource investment to use, and one that's temporary, is just laughable. Then there's the saving throws. At level 14, monks get Disciplined Survivor, which gives them proficiency in all saves, so this isn't quite as valuable since we'll always have a pretty healthy bonus anyway. But it also detracts from the secondary feature, which allows you to spend a focus to re-roll. Now we just always gain advantage on one of these saves anyway. Now, I will say that Disciplined Survivor works across all saves and does actually still work with the Nature Tattoo, since you could roll with advantage and then spend a focus to reroll and take the 3rd die. It's not terribly egregious, but it does kind of feel like that they forgot the feature existed for a second. I have no idea what's going on here. Nature Tattoo feels like it needs a full rework. And finally, at level 17, we get our last set of tattoos, the Monster Tattoos. Again, we can only choose one here. First, we have Beholder, which gives us a fly speed of 10 feet and allows us to spend 3 focus to cast Counterspell. Firstly, let's just consider that 4 elements monks get a fly speed equal to their speed at level 11, though Elemental Attunement does have to be active. But then 3 focus points to cast Counterspell is also just a lot. And like, you probably have someone else in the party that's able to cast Counterspell anyway. Although this does provide an additional way to counterspell a counterspell, but it's a high cost for something that may or may not be useful and tacked on to a minuscule amount of flying. Incidentally, this probably would actually be okay if it came at 11th level. Next is Blink Dog, which allows us, when we are already spending a focus point on Patient Defense, to spend an additional 3 focus points to cast Blink. This one actually made me laugh, I'll be honest. A total expenditure of 4 focus points to cast a spell that has a 50% chance to do nothing is actually crazy. Yes, it does last for a minute, so you can keep trying, but the biggest downside of Blink is that it takes you out of the equation when it works, and then allows monsters to attack other, potentially more squishy allies, whereas you as the monk are likely up front and center, and now you're just gone. I don't really get this one at all. Next is Displacer Beast, which allows us, when we spend a focus point on Flurry of Blows or Step of the Wind, to spend another 2 focus points to cast Mirror Image. Mirror Image is at least a great spell, but we're still looking at a total expenditure of 3 focus to enable this. Honestly, this should have just been one of these Celestial Tattoos and just let us spend 2 focus points to cast Mirror Image without it being tied to using something else. And finally, we have Guardian Naga, which makes it so that when we would be sent to 0 hit points, instead we're bounced back up to an amount equal to twice our monk level, so 34 at the time that we get the feature. We can only use it once per long rest though. It is worth noting that Barbarians can do this starting at level 11, though it is tied to a DC. However, they can use it multiple times per long rest. This one isn't objectively bad, it's actually probably the best one here, but to have that be our entire 17th level capstone is just a bit of a tough sell. Overall, I feel like the Tattooed Warrior needs some pretty significant reworking in order to become a viable subclass. The beast tattoos are probably the best ones available to us, as getting access to a few reasonable spells is always great, and they offer a good variety of utility that monks do not typically have. I'm not convinced it's great, but it's okay. The rest of the features feel like an out-of-season April Fool's joke. Comet? Who are we kidding? I don't know what they were thinking here. I will say that the concept of the celestial tattoos are also probably fine. 2 focus points for a second level spell doesn't sound like a terrible deal at all. They just need to pick some better options. The nature tattoos are ridiculous, I don't even think I can discuss them again. And honestly, most of the monster tattoos would probably just be better positioned as 11th level features, so maybe do that, scrap nature, and come up with a new capstone. I feel like I like the concept of this subclass. It's a cool idea, but it just does not feel even close to viable in its current state. So let me know what you think in the comments, check out some of my other videos, but otherwise, take care.